This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from whatever altitude you're at. We're at 5,280 feet, the Mile High territory. Make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And also make sure you clear your calendar to be at our altitude, Mile High territory, in August of 2026 for Mile High 14. You know you want to be there. Just plan to climb the mountain to rise up and be there with us for Mile High 14. I am super energized about our guest today because he is in addition to be just a stellar soul and be a phenomenal chiropractor, he's a literal neighbor in Boulder, Colorado here. He's a chiropractor and entrepreneur based in our city. He's the co-owner of MUV Chiropractic and co-founder of the Chiro-Ads Academy, where he teaches chiropractors how to take their Facebook and Instagram ads in-house to build consistent, sustainable, and profitable digital marketing systems, something that's super important in the world right now for chiropractors. Makingmoves.com is where you can learn more about him. He was at the past Mile High as an exhibitor, and so many people were excited about him and his company being there. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Travis Stewart.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we finally were able to make it happen.
Yes, it has been a long time coming, and you and I were just talking before we went on cam here about a little mini apocalypse in Boulder. How it looks like they were calling 2 days of no power because they want to be preventative, and here we are saying, well, we can take care of patients anytime. All we need is this. We don't need any electricity to turn the power on, right?
That's right. Yeah, just hands and hearts. So we'll be serving people in natural light, it sounds like, for the next few days.
Yeah, we'll see what it's like. But let's help people get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your journey. And how'd you end up being a chiropractor? What put you in this direction?
It's a good question, and it's I often reflect on it more now, coming up on my 6th year in practice. I think during the first few years of practice, I was just like so head down doing the work that I almost forgot to look up and reflect on the journey that got me here. And I'm taken aback every time I think about it, because I actually went into the Air Force out of high school. I became an Air Force firefighter. And so I went to fire school in San Angelo, Texas, and then ended up getting stationed in Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane, Washington. And I never really skied or snowboarded much growing up, but I began to learn when I was there in Spokane, and I picked it up pretty quickly. I picked up snowboarding, and I was a little too courageous, I guess. I had been there several years, and I actually was not supposed to be up on the slope. So the way the fire department works is you work 2 on 3 off, 2 on 3 off, and then 2 on 4 off. And that 2 on 4 off is known as your Kelly day in the fire department. And the other shifts, you're actually on call. Even if you're at home, you're on call. And so I was not supposed to be up on the slopes that day, but I was, and ended up taking a pretty gnarly spill. And I broke my clavicle, bit through my tongue, knocked myself unconscious, and had to ride down the slopes on my butt on my snowboard. And, I knew I was pretty injured, but I had to go back to work. And, at the time I was 22 years old and I was tough, and I was just going to grit it out, And so I went back on the truck and continued to do the training, and you got to wear the air pack, and the training is pretty rigorous. And over the next 6 to 8 weeks, obviously I had pretty significant trauma to my clavicle, but I also started to get a lot of neurological symptoms down into my left arm. And so I started to have some atrophy into my entire left arm. I started to wake up with claw hand. I couldn't lift my arm in abduction past shoulder height. And it was hard for me to wash my hair. And I just started losing grip strength and, all of those kind of neurological signs of radiculopathy and nervous system interference there. And because I was in the military, they put me through like the medical gauntlet, the ringer, So I went to a general practitioner. They sent me then to an orthopedic specialist, who then sent me to a physical therapist. And then I had occupational therapy. I had a CAT scan. I had an MRI, X-ray studies. I had pretty much all the advanced imaging, and nobody could figure out what was going on with my left side. And so it ended up, unfortunately, becoming so debilitating that I actually had to be taken off the truck, which means that I wasn't in service anymore. And so they actually put me in the alarm room, which is the 911, what's your emergency? But I was working the night shift on a flight line. And so I was a 22 years old that was working the night shift, that was formerly, this macho chiropractor around all of my peers and colleagues, and really just felt the camaraderie and the energy and the passion. And then almost overnight, I was stuck in an alarm room by myself. And, I was not able to stay awake, unfortunately or fortunately. And so I missed a few calls during the night shift, which was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., naturally, because I was tired, like any regular human being. And so they put me on Ritalin. And I was on 20 milligram Ritalin, one at 6 p.m. and then one at midnight every day. And when I got off in the morning at 6 a.m., I wouldn't be able to go to sleep. So I self-medicated with alcohol and, began to go to the gas station on base and get a little bit of vodka. And I would pretty much drink myself to sleep. And I would wake up, have some caffeine, go to the gym, and then wash, rinse, repeat. And so I just started to have this like downward spiral in my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And nobody could help me. And so I really felt helpless. And I was this young, ambitious, driven person that had essentially been the product of very unfortunate circumstances. And I was spiraling downward quickly. And I remember I was, I had pretty severe suicidal thoughts and was on the phone with my dad several times, and he was trying to walk me through things, and it was a really challenging time in my life. And so I was pretty much at my wit's end, and I didn't know what I was going to do moving forward with my life. It felt extremely tragic, and I was back home visiting my family, and my dad actually was like, "Why don't you go down here and see Dr. Langus?" And Dr. Langus was a baseball coach of mine growing up, and one of my really good friends' fathers, and he was a chiropractor. And he's actually an applied kinesiologist. He practiced AK, and but he did manual adjusting. And I was like, well, if a medical doctor if all these medical doctors couldn't help me, Dad, like, what would a chiropractor be able to do for me? And I was kind of like, at the point, I was just irritated and irrational. I was like, what the heck could a chiropractor do for me, Dad? I appreciate your concern, but like, listen, I've been to real doctors, and they can't help me. Like, there's nothing. And so he was like, it's literally 3 minutes down the road, Travis. Let's just give it a shot. Like, what do you have to lose? And I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing Dr. Langus and Kathy, his wife, who I was really close with growing up. And so we went into his office, and I remember he pulled me into the room, and he just asked me, like, what's going on here? And, I told him the exact symptoms that I was having, and he's like, that's your lower cervical spine. It's your first rib. It's brachial plexus. It's some type of nerve interference that's causing this problem. We need to get you adjusted. And so he had me lay face down on the table and turn your head to the right. And I remember he made, his index finger and thumb contact and gave a little bit of traction under my occiput and just gave me that impulse into my spine. And it was the first and most important impulse that I had ever received. And I just remember this massive cavitation that occurred, but it was almost like this potential energy pocket was released and everything turned kinetic. And in that moment, I felt blood flow and nerve supply down my arm that I hadn't felt in years. And I literally, like, it sounds like I'm embellishing the story, but I leapt up off the table and I had tears in my eyes. And It's like, I don't know. Or I said, what did you just do to me? He was like, I told you it was your lower neck. I told you you needed an adjustment. And I was like, I don't know what you just did, but I need more of that. And I
Uh-huh.
remember I was just like teary eyed, and he was like, come back for the next 6 weeks and let's get you taken care of. And so, yeah, from that point forward, I knew I was going to be a chiropractor. And the story didn't stop there. It was really challenging. I met my wife, and her family didn't really want me to be a chiropractor. Her grandfather didn't want me to be a chiropractor. I remember sitting across the table from him whenever we told everybody I was going to go to chiropractic school, and he was like, why don't you get a real job? I still remember to this day. And I hate it when people tell those stories because they never seem true, but like this is true. And so I was just like challenged and tried by, all of the people that were close to me on the decision that I'd made to become a chiropractor. But I just remember how life altering it was for me, and how it truly set me on my path to healing and well-being, and allowed me to understand that, we do have a power inside of our body that just needs to be unleashed. And from that day forward, I knew that I was going to be serving people with my hands as a doctor of chiropractic. And who would have known I'd be sitting here with you today talking about, the success that we've had in practice and marketing and all of those things. But I'm really grateful for it.
That is quite the story. It must have been quite the experience to live. I don't know the answer to the question. Where'd you end up going to chiropractic school?
Parker University.
Parker. Okay.
It's actually the only chiropractic college that I knew existed,
Oh,
to be
really?
honest. I'm
Really?
from Texas. Yeah, I'm from Texas, and I was going to undergraduate school at Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches, Texas. So whenever I started looking for chiropractic colleges, Parker University was the obvious choice for me. And so I ended up at Parker, and then I quickly realized that there was several other chiropractic colleges in the United States. But I'm glad I went to Parker. I actually enjoyed my academic experience there, as much as people hate on the administration, the leadership there. I think what it did is it allowed me to see that there are two camps in chiropractic, and
Mhm.
it allowed me to seek out the philosophical chiropractic groups. It was something that wasn't taught to me, so it didn't feel like something that was standardized in chiropractic education, and so it
Right.
made me want it even more. So. I think that was a great benefit that I had, is that I wasn't just kind of put into this system and educated through like standard traditional chiropractic teachings. It's like I had to go find it, and so that lit a
Mhm.
little fire under my belly.
I gotta say something. I start off by saying how we're both in the same town. Um, I I I distinctly remember when I came to Boulder and opened up, there were people that I looked up to in practice here, and they actually discouraged myself and Rochelle from opening. And I was really disheartened because they were people I knew and I looked up to. And they said, there's too many chiropractors. There were particularly at that time too many network chiropractors. You're not going to succeed. And it really got me upset, at the time. This is 30 years ago. And I remember that. I mean, I took that very much to heart. And I know that whenever people like you come into our town and open, I'm like, that's excellent. That's awesome. Because I'm really happy when there's more people that are actually sharing chiropractic that's consistent with our values, because that creates more of a field that people learn what chiropractic is compared to another person that really is a back pain doctor or something like that, as compared to that they're not that chiropractic doesn't have an impact on pain, but that has a focus that they're going to be teaching people for about subluxation and about innate intelligence. And I said that same team thing to Dr. Mike when he came to town. So I think it creates again more a certain message can emanate in your town when people do that. So I hope people hear this so that they know that they need to be positive when there's more chiropractors in their town.
Supportive.
There's you
Yeah.
know there's not enough chiropractors in the world. So people need to, we need to work together more versus the opposite. So and I was very excited when you guys were here.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've learned now as well over kind of building the business that we built during the time that we built it. We faced
Mhm.
a lot of challenges that I think a lot of chiropractors that had been in practice before 2020 might not have experienced. And we jumped straight into like the digital marketing. We had to become marketing specialists and really great at what we did. And what we began to quickly understand is that we talk about the utilization rate not being high enough, but like when you actually understand what a 12% utilization rate means, it means that 88% of the population is not using chiropractic
Right.
as part of their lifestyle. So if you are somebody who is not supportive of young chiropractors coming into your location or starting practice across the street or whatever, and you actually see them as competitors, I think it's just a
Right.
quick reframe to understand that, like, there's 88% of the population out there that have no idea that chiropractic can fit into their health and wellness lifestyle. And
Right.
so instead of talking down upon or, trying to competitively squash or squander the practice of young chiropractors that are just looking to perpetuate the message of chiropractic. I think it's how can we reach the other 88%?
Right.
How can we band together and actually reach more of this town instead
Right.
of
Exactly.
fighting over the 12%? It's like, no, let's turn the 12% into 20%.
I mean, there's
Because there's enough people to go
yeah.
around.
And I mean, opening up, I'm sure you had this too. Like people that came in and had never seen a chiropractor. It was like, we were
That's
told
right.
there's 100 chiropractors in Boulder, there's 100,000 people. It's too much saturation. You don't want to open here and all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, I had my first year here and there was all kinds of people that never been to a chiropractor, didn't know what a subluxation was. So what's the concern? You
That's right.
know?
That happens literally every day.
Right,
Literally every day. We
exactly.
have people that come in
So,
and they're like, I've never been to I'm like, you've never been to a chiropractor? Like, that's
right,
so shocking to me. And it literally never ceases to amaze me and surprise me. But literally, we get it every single
every
day, which is
day.
a good
So,
thing.
right, right. Which is to, and then to say that like there's too many chiropractors is a joke, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that being said, digital marketing, how did
Mhm.
that become a focus for you?
Yeah, great question. Well, we opened our practice in Boulder in 2020. So I
Hmm.
believe our actual open date was October 5th of 2020, and I
Hmm.
had graduated in August of 2020. And so we came here and planted our flag and we're able to open our practice. And thankfully we were able to rent space from Jason Horowitz.
Oh yeah,
Always
I
thankful
didn't know
for
that. I didn't know that's
yeah,
where you
yeah,
started.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Love
funny
him.
because Jay Comerick was the first chiropractic seminar that I ever went to.
Oh,
Extracurricular seminar. I was a try one actually. And I had some friends that were in their seventh trimester, and they were like, "Hey, we can tell that like you're really going to get into adjusting and technique, and we have this awesome icon in the profession that's coming to teach this seminar." And I was like, "Cool, how much is it?" They were like $350. I was like, "What?" For a weekend seminar? I just didn't understand. I was like, "I'm paying $200,000 for this education, and I got to go learn, and pay them someone $350." But
right.
they talked me into it, and so I went, and it ended up being Dr. J, and Dr. J just literally rocked my world, man. I remember
Mhm.
to my core. There were several pivotal moments in my chiropractic career, and Dr. Langus was the first one, and then Dr. J was the second one. And so he just set me on my trajectory to really mastering the technique of the chiropractic adjustment. And interestingly enough, whenever I opened here in Boulder, I actually rented space from Dr. Jason Orowitz, and Dr. Jason Orowitz had actually bought Dr. J. Comerick's practice. And
Right.
so the half of the practice that my wife and I were able to rent was actually where Dr. J used to work. And so
Hmm.
I thought that was just really, really, I don't know, just coincidental. But anyway, so I was able to open a practice here because Dr. Jason took us under his wing and just allowed us to rent space whenever he wasn't in the office. So we had really weird hours, but it was right in the midst of COVID-19,
Hmm.
and we didn't really understand the landscape that we were walking into here at Boulder. Coming from Dallas, Texas, people were pretty much operating business as usual. And, we got,
That was not the case in Boulder.
that was not the case here. No, we got here and it was really highly regulated. Everyone was
Yes.
judgmental. They were projecting how they thought that we should be behaving on us at all
Right.
times in all places. It didn't matter where you were, what elevation you were at, or what hiking trail you were on. They thought you needed to be wearing 3 masks at all times, and if you weren't, they would hit you with a stick and
Yes.
call you ugly names.
Yes.
And
You remember all that?
Oh,
What
I
a time to
remember it
open
very
up.
well. I remember it very well, vividly. Still have nightmares about it. But
You
we
must
were
have thought, why
blindly
did I move
courageous.
here?
Exactly. I did think that several times, Danny. Seriously, we were like, how did we choose like one of the few places on Earth where it's going to be literally impossible or nearly impossible for us to grow a service-based business where we have to touch people, you know? And we've got this 6-foot rule. They've got this 1 in, 1 out. I think they had recently made,
Oh, all that.
I think, chiropractors were actually shut down there for a
Yeah.
temporary amount of time. I think the CCA might have had to actually fight, and then they were able to give us the green light, and we were able to
That was
open
us.
back
That was
up.
Mile High.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, whenever you start a practice like that and you're bootstrapping it, it's really grassroots. It's boots on the ground. You need to be able to get out and you need to do these networking events. You need people to know that you exist in order to actually choose to come into your practice. And we didn't have any of those opportunities. And so we knew we not only needed to survive, but we wanted to thrive. And so we just did a lot of analysis and contemplation, and we decided that the only way that we were actually going to be able to grow this practice was by getting into digital marketing. And so we hired a digital marketing agency. I won't say their name. I think they're actually dissolved now, or they've recently been sold to private equity. But we started with this company based on referral, and honestly, we had like a decent experience in the first month. And I think whenever they were trying to sell us pretty much. And then after that, we just had poor customer service, low quality leads. Our funnels were all jacked up. They were putting other people's stuff on our page and our stuff on other people's pages. And it just became a mess. But we did see some new patients come in the door from it, which was something that we obviously needed. So we saw that there was some potential here. Well, long story short, we had gone through 4 different marketing agencies over the course of about 6 months. And, we finally had one that was pretty decent, and we were growing a little bit month over month. And I remember at the time I had actually hired an office manager that was a male. He's now my co-founder, Ryan. And I met him at a rebellious meetup, which was this Mead and Jung bar here in Boulder. And it was an event that you got to go to where you didn't have to wear a mask. And it was
I didn't
pretty
even
much
know about this.
I know, that's good. It was all underground. No, I wish you would have known, because you would have loved this group of people. But they were all kinds of different professionals and different people that were just not taking the vax narrative. They were fed up with the way that Colorado was handling this, and it was no mask. So we felt like rebels, and it was this underground community there. And I met my now co-founder and co-owner of the Chiro-Ads Academy, but then my office manager. So we actually hired him. He was in healthcare administration before that, and he just fell in love with chiropractic. And he fell in love with the message of chiropractic, and it really helped him with his nervous system regulation, and his spine health was something that he had struggled with. And so him and I were pretty much 1-on-1 trying to grow this practice alongside my wife. And we had found this marketing agency that was doing decent for us, and they were willing for us to be involved in the collaboration process. And him and I went to Colorado Springs for a little mastermind meeting, him and I, a little getaway trip. And we had our weekly call with our rep in that company. And I remember we had gone outside of the industry and started to pull from all of these different marketing resources just to try to bolster our online reputation and start to generate more traffic and just learn how we could be better. And we had highlighted notes, all of these. I have the books still back here, and I'll always keep them. But I remember we got on that call and we were like, well, what what if we set up our funnel like this? What if we went cold, warm, hot, and we put our messaging like this for the cold audience, and then we had our this type of messaging for the warm audience, and then when they got into the hot, we were retargeting them with this type of video, and we had this type of message, and then this type of landing page on the back end that was actually building more social proof. And she was like taking notes over there, and she was like, okay, I'm going to go take this to my leadership team and see if we can implement this stuff right away. And so we were like, awesome, let's do it. And we closed the MacBook, and I remember I turned and I looked at Ryan, and I was like, I feel like we could do this ourselves. And he was like, I was just thinking the same exact thing. And so at that point, we just decided that we are going to take this on and see if we can build our own in-house ad system. And so we did. And so I pretty much put down all the money that we had plus some to find a consultant that was willing to teach us how to build out a CRM and use Go High Level and build out all of these funnels, build out the automation sequences. And he gave us just a very basic template, but we pretty much took what he gave us and we ran with it. And we built something that was unique and specific to chiropractic. And we grew our practice really quickly after that. And so I think we were like, our ceiling was like $12,000 a month. And then we quickly grew to $70,000 a month. And 90% of our new patients came from digital advertising, which I think was kind of unheard of at the time. And honestly, a lot of people advise against that. You know, they want you to grow your practice from the inside out through a referral-based system. But in order to have internal referrals, you have to have patients. And we didn't have many patients at the time. And so, we were just building through digital traffic. And, you know, we did that for probably a year and a half, and we just optimized our system. We understood how to create the creative and the content that captivates attention, how to compel people through proper messaging frameworks, and then how to actually have like a modern follow-up system, and then how to get them to pay for their appointments to increase show rate, and then how to actually convert them on the back end into chiropractic advocates and believers in chiropractic, and then essentially they become lifetime wellness members, which I know you're a big fan of. So we just figured out how to build this incredible digital advertising system that didn't depend on anybody else. And
that's
I have a
all
podcast.
super exciting.
Yeah, and I got to talk about
you
it.
said sorry, I didn't interrupt. So tell me about your podcast there.
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It was formerly called Making Moves. I've recently called it The Arena, just because I love Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech, and I think there are a lot of critics that are throwing stones from the outside. But really, it's the men in the arena, men and women in the arena every day that I truly admire, you know, that are putting in the work, that are being critiqued and being judged, but they're the ones that are marred by the dust, the sweat, and the tears, that are doing the actual work, pushing the profession forward. And so I got to talk about my digital marketing success. And, you know, we had a lot of chiros that were inquiring. They were like, yeah, we're on the digital marketing hamster wheel as well. And we want to solve this problem. Can you guys teach us? And at the time, we weren't coaching. We were just doing it inside of our practice. And, you know, I had so many inquiries at one time that I finally had to go to Ryan, and I was like, hey, I'm getting messages from docs all over the United States asking about if we'd be willing to teach them our system. What do you think about it? And he was like, well, you know, he had just recently had a partner. I think they had just recently found out that they were pregnant as well. He's like, I want to eventually be able to transition out of the office and out of this office manager role and into a position where, you know, I can provide a little bit better financial security and a potential financial future for my family. And I think that I'm really good at this. So it does just make sense. You know, like the preparation and the luck met the opportunity, and we were willing to take advantage of that.
You know, I got a flashback a second, because as you were talking, and this is all super exciting because there's a lot. Hey, look, I'm one of them. There's a lot of people that have spent a lot in the chiropractic profession, I guess outside the chiropractic profession too, that have spent a lot of money in agencies and got hosed. There's a lot of that. And that's, you know, you talk to that pain point of you experiencing that. I know I'm one of them that spent more than I want to say on agencies and got very little for it. So I'm super thrilled that you're doing this to help chiropractors, speed up their learning curve and get, the bottom line is to help more people, right? Is to, like, we all become chiropractors, not just for a job. Like, we can do lots of other things to make revenue, but like because we have a heart of helping people, and to see that you're helping people do that faster is real. I'm really grateful for that you help people in that way. But I remember that I flashback. I remember you at that Mile High event, and you looked like you had been shell shocked from being in Boulder and opening and what you described. I remember saying, it's like, hey, we got to stick together. And you're like, oh, we really do it this time. I remember your face and your energy of that. I'm like, wow, I hope this guy pushes through this. So I
I
don't
was
know if you
struggling,
remember
Danny.
that.
I was struggling, man. I was
I know. Hey,
struggling
we
on.
all were. It was tough.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I look back at photos now and I'm like, wow, he looks empty. It's like my fuel. I was running on low fuel, no sleep. I was sweating through my bed sheets. I didn't know, like because I had essentially like I I had told Sarah's entire family that like I was gonna prove them wrong. That like
Right.
no, this is the right decision for myself and your daughter and our future family. And like we're going to do this. We're going to make it work.
Right.
And then we got here and it was really hard to make it work.
It was. It was. Yeah. Boulder's not the easiest, you know?
It's
So,
already
yeah.
not the
It's
easiest.
already
And
not the
then
easiest. And then you put
yeah,
this on top of it. I'm well aware,
uh-huh.
so, but I remember that and I was grateful that you stuck through. And Mile High, before I ask you more about making moves and what you've been at Mile, I don't know, almost every year.
Yeah,
What
I've been
was
there
your
every year.
experience being at Mile High?
Well, I'll tell you, like during that time of need, it was the breath of life that I needed to keep pushing. Um, I think that it can be really lonely as a chiropractor, especially as the practice owner,
Hmm.
because of the things that you have to focus on that typically consume your every thought. I think sometimes it's important to remember that there are other chiropractors out there that are going through the same things, but
Hmm.
it's also important to be refreshed and reminded of the bigness of the message of chiropractic and what we're actually providing for people.
Right.
I hear a quote all the time that I really like, and it's you need to be reminded more than you need to be taught. And so
Right.
I think that's what's so great about Mile High is that you get to come back and you get to hear people speak with so much breadth and depth about the message of chiropractic, so that you can be reminded about your purpose, your mission, your vision, your why. And you get to go back in the office, and that energy, although it's unquantifiable, it just always provides a spark and a catalyst for growth and organization with inside of the structure of your practice. You go back and the team is more elevated, you're more elevated, the energy is more elevated, your patients are more elevated, the communication is more clear, the conversions are higher, the referrals start to come in, and you just have it's kind of hard. It's definitely more quantum than Newtonian physics. I think there's something more to it, but that's what I always experience, which is why we'll be at Mile High every year. And I love, and I'm fortunate that it's in my backyard. Um, you know, it's right down the road, so I won't miss one. But I mean, especially as I mean, honestly, I was going to say as a young chiropractor, but really at every stage in the game, I think there's just so much benefit to being in that environment. I think the speakers that you have are amazing, and that's obviously a benefit. But also just being in the audience with the other chiropractors and sitting shoulder to shoulder with people that are sacrificing time away from their office and the resources that it take to get there, to come and just be revitalized, and then go back with that vigor and that vitality, and then be able to spread it to their communities. It's a really powerful thing.
I have to say, I've been telling people, and thank you for saying all that. I've been telling people that as good as the speakers are, what really makes it great is the audience. And there is like a field that's set up, of the people that are there, and the energy that they bring is what makes it great. More so than the speakers. I think it's the people that attend sincerely that then create this field of passion that's there, that's palpable, like you said. So digital marketing. Two-part question, and then I think this will be towards we'll be wrapping up. One, if someone chiropractor, opening office, or even maybe they've been practicing and they're really new to digital marketing, what would you say, hey, this is where you got to start? And then two, part B, two is how do they get connected with making moves?
Yeah, good question. So part one, where do you start? So that's a tough question to answer. But where I would say like step one would be, and this is a very tactical step. I'll give a tactical step is owning a CRM, which is your client relationship manager, which is actually owning what I like to call like the keystone of my business. It's in both of my businesses now, which we use Go High Level, and that's pretty much my lead management software. And so that's where I house all of our funnels. That's where we house all of our automation sequencing. It's our third-party messaging platform. But it also allows us to keep all of our traffic, all of the leads that we've ever generated in one place. And it allows us to keep them organized so that we don't let people slip through the cracks. I think that would be like square one, regardless of who you're working with, or if you're even working with a digital marketing agency, or even experimenting with digital marketing at all. If you are trying to grow a business, one of the main pillars of growth is going to be marketing, regardless of whether it's internal, external, or digital. You need to have a lead management software. That's exactly where I would start. And then the second piece to that would be learning how to produce content if you're looking for leverage. So, I'm a big fan of leverage. I want to know, like, how can I put in the lowest amount of effort into this like pillar of my practice in order to get the highest level of return, or the highest quantity and quality of outcome. And so for me, digital marketing is one of the best ways to do that, especially as a young practice, because like I said, getting to being a referral based practice is obviously an aspirational goal. Like, you'd love to get to that at some point, but you got to have patience in order to have those patients replicate and multiply. And so, I think the best way to not have to spend all of your time out at screening events and doing all of the networking events, especially if you have a family, is to buy attention. And it's essentially it's digital real estate. And so if you can learn kind of this ad management platform, and you can learn how to create compelling creative, and put an offer out there that brings them onto your home turf, and be able to provide some social proof and some success stories, in order to get them kind of geared up and excited about what you're offering. And then you have a good conversion based system where you can get them through your subluxation analysis, and then give them a clear report of findings, and then give them clear and direct financial delivery, and an opportunity to say yes. And you get more yeses than you get nos, then you can grow your business really effectively with that digital marketing stream. It's simpler than ever. I'll kind of leave the audience with this. It's simpler than ever. Simple doesn't always mean easy, obviously, and that's why our business has grown so much over the past 2 years, is because people don't know where to start, and they don't know what steps to put in place in order to create this consistent and sustainable system. And we do, and we have built an extremely simple system that just needs to be copied and pasted. And then you can learn then how to build out the creative, and how to refresh your creative, and understand the data, and be able to run the numbers so that you can make higher level decisions as a business owner. And that'll take you about an hour of work per week. And then it allows you to just be the chiropractor for the remaining amount of time. And I think that that's invaluable. You don't always have this constant thought in your head about this company that may or may not be serving you effectively, the community, or the quality of service that you're getting from them, the actual numbers, like, am I wasting money? Is this even working? Like, none of those questions are occurring. You know exactly what's happening. You know why it's happening, and what you need to do based on the data that you currently have in order to improve your system overall. And, I think that that's extremely empowering, for a chiropractor, because it just allows you to focus on your team and your mission and your service. And you're not paying for something that you don't really need to pay for. $135 billion in revenue every year comes from Facebook's advertising platform. They make 99% of their revenue from their ad management platform, which means they want to make it as easy to use for every single small business on Facebook, not just the few thousand marketing agencies that currently exist that kind of have become conglomerates and consolidated different industries into their own marketing agency bucket. They want every small business across the globe to be able to utilize their ad platform, and so they put billions and billions of dollars every year into R&D to make it as easy as possible. And we figured out how to do that essentially, and we can teach you and your team how to do that as well. So if they want to get a hold of Making Moves, it's makingmoves.com, but it's moves with MUVS. So my practice is called Move, but it's MUV. So it's makingmuvs.com. And it's the Chiro-Ads Academy. And we have a free training on there that they can opt into, and they can watch me talk about all these things in a more eloquent and structured way. And I'll give some really great insight on things that they can use right now to improve their digital advertising strategy. But yeah.
Brilliant. This is it's brilliant. It's so exciting because it's somewhat about you're telling you're in my words, I'd say you're giving people their power back. You're empowering them to be able to, rather than say, I just don't know what I'm doing, I got to hire someone, that they can play a part in this. It's not, you're taking some of the mystery out of it so that, hey, you can do this, and it's an empowerment state. Is that, at least that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a chiropractic philosophy. We're adjusting the cause instead of treating the symptom. You can get into that Western medicine flywheel where you're just constantly grasping for the next thing to patch up your symptoms, or you can adjust the cause. You can figure out where the subluxations are. You can release the subluxation and allow the free-flowing energy of the nervous system to actually supply and heal your practice and heal your digital marketing approach. And that's essentially what we're doing for chiropractors.
So makingmoves.com, and then also Instagram, you have Making Moves
underscore Kairos.
Yep. Underscore Kairos. So I suggest very much so. Dr. Travis walks his talk. So he walks the walk, and he's a person too. He will give you a straight shot of what to do, and I cannot recommend enough to reach out to him. And we're grateful to have you part of the Boulder community and the Colorado community and the Mile High community and to help chiropractors around the world. So I want you to know that, and this is really important for chiropractors to be more empowered rather than feeling like they just have to give it up, that they and stay lost. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing for chiropractors. And by the time people watch this, it'll be after the little mini apocalypse in Boulder. We'll see what happens.
That's right. So maybe we can report back. Let them know how it went.
Hands and face paper and tables, we can do it. So
that's right.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you for being part of everything. And again, everybody, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic, and join us at Mile High 14. RiseUpToMileHigh.com, and decide to do that before the ball drops. Like rise up before the ball drops on December 31st and New Year's Eve. That you are saying, I'm going to be all in to be with you there at higher ground. So, thank you so much again, Dr. Travis.
Yep. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for having me.